Hey everyone, and welcome to the Irenic Ref podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Gross. The word Irenic means aimed at or aiming towards peace, and my goal with the podcast is to try to create a bridge between coaches and officials by showing the humanity of each other in a more robust way, which isn't necessarily achievable in the minimal interactions a coach and official may experience during a game. With all that said, let's get to it. Today's guest has been officiating for 31 years. Of those 31 years, 18 of them have resulted in him officiating in the state tournament. And of those 18, every one of them has been at the AA Boys tournament. He has officiated multiple region championships prior to the change to the South Dakota 16, and then has officiated in almost every ST16 since its inception. He also worked many years as a college basketball official, and last year was named the 2022 to 2023 Boys High School Basketball Official of the Year. In his spare time, he enjoys playing golf and has conquered the incredible feat of not just having one hole-in-one, but two hole-in-ones. Please welcome Jeff Schroder. Jeff, thanks for coming on the show today.
Oh, you're welcome.
And so first, I kind of want to jump into something that, is pretty intense, but I think it's worth mentioning. So I think it's about 5 years ago. You're on a college court, had a heart attack, and it seemed like there's a bunch of good things, but like the situation isn't the greatest, but there's a bunch of things in place that really helped through that situation. Do you want to, just talk about the situation, all the things that happened, and how that maybe has like shifted basketball officiating, the equipment that's available, and different things like that?
Well, yes, it was a little over 5 years ago, December of 2017. Was working a college basketball game over in Marshall, Minnesota on New Year's Eve, and collapsed on the basketball floor, had a heart attack, as you had stated, was pretty much not alive for 6 minutes. Thank goodness, as you had stated, it probably couldn't have happened at a better place if you really, if there is a good place to have a heart attack at. But two wonderful trainers that were, on site, as well as a nice young man, a doctor from Tennessee that was there. Actually was the head coach, Coach Bigler's brother-in-law. And so they ended up using the AED and revived me after doing CPR for 5-6 minutes. And to answer the second part of your question or statement, yes, I believe through this, whether or not it was just my situation, there's been a couple in the last couple of years that have also, I'm sure, helped out the cause to have AEDs in all the gymnasiums now, which I'm sure was not the case before this had happened, but our state of South Dakota made it whatever you want to call it, to have all the gyms have an AED in there from that, situation. So, I'll just end it at this, but, God was definitely didn't want me to go for some odd reason that day. So, thank goodness. But,
Yeah, and I appreciate you, sharing that as tough as it may be and whatnot. It's just crazy, like I said, with all the things that are going on with our state association, how they're really putting things and implementing things in place for, those sort of things so they do not happen. And if they do happen, then there are things there to then help, whether that's a coach, someone in the stands, an official, even God forbid a player would to go down with a situation like that. It's really cool to see our association do things like that to really ensure the safety of everybody that's involved in this.
Yep. I would agree 100%.
Yeah. And so just following up with that, let's just get into a personal introduction. Tell me about yourself, your family, maybe like, I know we briefly talked about this before, but where you were brought up and different things like that.
As you had stated, Andrew, my name is Jeff Schroder, married to my wonderful wife, Larissa Schroder. We've been married for pretty close to 25 years, 28 years, for that matter. We have two wonderful daughters, JD and Gabby. Both are attending colleges. One's up at the University of Jamestown in North Dakota, studying business, and plays hockey for their women's hockey program. My oldest is 24 years old. She is in PA school at the University of Northwestern. She graduated from Nebraska with her undergrad in PA school at Northwestern. And she's out and about at doing her clinicals at multiple different places coming up. So we live in Brandon, South Dakota. We've been there for our whole lives, both me and my wife. Work in Sioux Falls for First Premier Bank. And like I said, you said it at the beginning, I've been reffing for 31 years, basketball.
Yeah.
So,
fun fact about that, if people want to know, I am 31 years old, just to put that into perspective. But, you talked about, hole-in-ones. You got two of those. Are there some other hobbies that you have besides golf and officiating?
My hobbies right now consist of us traveling around watching my daughter. I retired from reffing football last year so that I could go do that, and that keeps us busy. Her schedule goes from the fall all the way through the middle of the winter, towards the March. So we're busy. Yeah, we're busy traveling. We enjoy it, but that's kind of what I do. And summertime, it's stuff around the house and golfing.
Yeah, absolutely. I can just think about my grandparents. Not saying you're that old yet, but just thinking about my grandparents and how they would come to every sporting event, almost every grandchild that they had, and just the miles they put on, the time. So I completely can see, is this the one in Jamestown you're talking about?
Yes.
And that's already a haul in itself for a home game, and then you go all the way down to Doane or wherever.
All over the place.
Yeah. So that conference is massive. But yeah, that's super cool, super fun to learn more about you in that way. So let's even go deeper in the sense of officiating. Tell me more about the people that kind of got you into officiating, and even the influences, like I said, the people, the influences, but also how that came about, how you got started in officiating.
Well, my dad started me in officiating. Still remember this day. The first game I got to go with him was over in Slayton, Minnesota.
Okay.
Slipped in the locker room floor, the old wooden benches in there, caught my head on the corner of the deal, had stitches, had to go to the local hospital in Slayton, Minnesota, and get stitches in my head. And but we still got to go to the Magnolia Steakhouse back when it was actually in Magnolia, Minnesota.
Okay.
He was, like I said, that's really the main reason how I got into reffing, is just because that's what my dad did, and I went along with him, and I went some different routes than what he went, and of course they didn't have camps and all that kind of stuff when he was refereeing, but I one of my longest people that I've been reffing with, I can remember we used to go over and work in Laverne, Minnesota. Their Christmas junior varsity basketball tournament over there is Jimmy Ricketts.
Okay.
So we've been as long as I've been reffing, so has he. So we kind of got into it together, about at the same time. So doing the sub varsity stuff. But man, I got a lot of people who I owe a lot of thanks to and stuff like that. Not so much with basketball, but football. I name a Keith Matisse, and he's like my older brother. Kept me going in football. It's hard to go on Friday nights when your kids are going to the games and doing all that kind of stuff. But people like him and my buddy out west, Mike Kirkaby, he's kept me on
is that the
even
Tin Man?
keels. The Tin Man.
Okay.
Yep, the Tin Man. Yep. But that's just to name a couple. I mean, I've got so many good friends from reffing that I've worked with for so many years, guys that aren't working anymore, that I go out to Rapid City or something to do the state tournament or to work out at the LNI or anything like that. And guys that I used to work with out there still to this day are really, really good friends of mine. And even around here, it's anybody who's ever refereed, it's a different group of people who you hang around with and have people's backs. You know what I'm saying? So
absolutely. And I'm sure with those friendships come a fun story or two or three. And maybe you can maybe like say, let's hear a fun story maybe within the realm of basketball, whether that was on the court or something. But then maybe one outside that maybe involved basketball, but just was a fun memory with some other people.
One of my, I guess, favorite stories, even though it happened during COVID and our wives couldn't go to the game because they wouldn't let any more than people's family in the games. But I got to referee with Jimmy Ricketts and Levi Pearson, the two guys that I went down on the basketball floor with for the first time. And it took a while. We made it work, and Mr. Fiala got us a game together, and that was a story and a night that I'll never forget. So I'll tell one quick story. This was back when this pops into my head. This was a game. It was back. Sioux Falls Lincoln was playing Spearfish.
Okay.
I remember the game. Spearfish was really good. They were both ranked. I want to say it was 1 and 2, but they were both in the top 5. And this was back in Lincoln's old gym.
Okay.
So it's a Saturday afternoon game. They had played Friday night and then Saturday afternoon, and the place was packed. They shut the doors and everything. And ball goes out of bounds 30 seconds into the game, and this young lady, high school student from Spearfish, was like, some bad words came out of her mouth and told me I wasn't very good in a nice, kind way, I would say. So it just so happened the ball went out of bounds the next trip up the floor, right smack dab in front of her. And I can remember seeing that young lady's face. I kind of put the ball up next to my mouth so nobody could see me, and I said, young lady, you drove a long ways. You better hope this game's on the radio because you're really close to listening to it on the radio. And she never said a word the rest of the game, but I mean, I thought to myself, I can't be that bad only 30 seconds into the game, type thing. But anyway, that's just little things like that, but.
Yeah. Was that around like the Matt Martin era? Or
it probably was fairly close to then. Okay. I can't remember. They had a couple of decent years in there, and I remember Matt Martin because we worked him in the state tournament out there. But so it had to have been close.
Okay, I just didn't know if that was one.
It was close.
But definitely would be a fun one to see him live. I know I went out. Beans from Huron, we went out there in 2004 to see Huron win. But I did the game. Yeah, just seeing him So that's awesome. You were on the court. I was probably yelling at you. So that's a different and different side to be on. But for me, it was one of the reasons why I ended up getting into officiating was I'm like, I think I can do better than these guys. Not that game specifically, but, through high school. And then you realize very quickly how much, man, there's a lot to learn.
It's different. Yeah.
Absolutely. Did you was there a point in your time officiating where you're kind of like, man, I'm really good, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I really have a lot to learn? Was there something like that, or did you kind of have good mentors like Ricketts and Fiala and people like that kind of
the guys who I went with, the who I called the older veterans who aren't refereeing anymore.
Yeah.
They were great. I mean, but I also took the time to, when I was doing sub-varsity, and this is the one thing I don't see a lot anymore, but I always took the time I said to myself, I'm going to be there.
Yep.
I might as well make it worth my time.
Yep.
So I would always ask them, hey, could I stay in here and listen to you guys, do whatever? And they were all so cool. Like the Rick Bromers and like I said, the Fialas and Gary Reeds and big Clyde Hagans and things like that. Quick story with Clyde Hagan. I go out to ref. I don't know how many times I heard the story of him getting drafted by the Dallas Cowboys, but we go to a game one time, and it was like one of my first couple ESD games that I'm doing, and 2-man back then, and we walk out or go into the locker room, and he's like all serious with me, and he says, we're going to wear these out in warm-ups. And he gives me a pair of these big old black, thick, like you can't even see out of them glasses. He goes, put them on. He goes, we're wearing them. I'm like, are we, So I didn't know. So we started going out, and he's like, no, we're not going to wear these, But, yeah, them guys were so good to myself. I hope that that's the way that I am. I try to do my best to help people out and especially the younger kids, give them my time.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that person that, he's kind of, doesn't want to give me his time or whatever. Yeah. That's just because the people who are in front of me, that's the way I thought they were to me.
Yeah.
Is that they gave me their time.
Yep.
So I don't know if that answers your question or not. I'm kind of rambling on.
No,
but,
that's perfectly fine. And I think that it's it's good, especially when you look at the numbers, look at the stats of the officials, the ages, and things like that, to be able to pour in. Even me being my first state tournament last year, with you being there, just even the little criticism, even help that you gave me throughout the tournament was nice. And I think that was, I think it's common that sort of thing happens throughout, whether you're at a state tournament, whether working with you in regular season games, or even just the cadre of people that were there. They gave you really good feedback and made sure and wanted you to get better, because they didn't want you to be like, you made a state tournament, good job. Like, you got to be better than that.
And I think there's always places to improve with refereeing. Yeah. Nobody calls or refs a perfect game. Trust me, I have made plenty of mistakes.
Yep.
And I'm sure if fans were listening, they would say, well, yeah, you have, but I've also learned from every one of my mistakes, and I've made myself better because of those.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I know with the guys a lot of people who I associate with, I mean, what I think a lot of people don't understand about referees and in our community is that we're probably our biggest critiquers and our biggest, people who, think critics is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
And we watch more film nowadays and watch games and talk about plays more than, during the season, we're constantly on the phone talking
Yep.
plays or riding to games. It's not just going and reffing the game and being done.
Yep.
Now, I'm sure there's some people that do that, and that's fine.
Yep.
That's but that's how you get better, and you learn from your mistakes. And I think over the past 31 years, I've had plenty of mistakes, and I think I've learned from most of them.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. And is there, I don't know if it would be necessarily a mistake, but like maybe an interaction with a coach, whether that was a fun one, a memorable one, maybe there was a mistake you had and you went up and you're like, hey, it's a funny story with this coach, or there was a mistake that was on the floor and you just had a good interaction with a coach.
I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
As far as with the head coaches,
Yeah.
and I'll be honest, I've made a lot of friends throughout refereeing. There's some I don't care for, and I'm sure they don't care for me.
Yep.
And that's just being honest. I try with the head coaches to be as professional as I possibly can, whether it's we're on the floor during the game, before warm-ups, all that.
Yep.
That's just the way I've always been.
Yep.
Where my stories come out and the fun comes out more is with the assistant coaches.
Yeah, okay.
I've gotten some of the assistants are where you joke around a little bit to take the edge off or whatever. And
Yeah.
I'll throw one name out there. He's now a head coach, but he was and he still is one of the guys who jokes around the most with this.
Sure.
is Pat McClements from Watertown.
Okay. Yeah.
Great dude. As an assistant coach, I always felt like he helped us, had our backs, kind of,
Yep.
And I praise him for that, because he lightened the load up a lot when you were doing his games and stuff like that. But the coaches, and I think over the years you earn that with coaches. You earn your respect.
Yep.
Sometimes it takes longer than but I think I've earned some respect over the years. Not every night's going to be a friendly night with people.
Yep.
But you want to know what? I'll guarantee you walk away, you see them at the grocery store or something, and it's totally different.
Yep.
I will go back real quick to my situation that I had 5.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Some coaches, I will honestly never forget them, what they sent me as far as cards. And Mr. Roby, he was there the day I got out of the hospital and helped me carry all my stuff down, him and his assistant coaches.
Wow.
Those kind of things, regardless of what goes on in a basketball game,
Yep.
You can throw the referee coach thing out the window.
Yep.
That's friendships.
Yep.
And same with Mr. Budenhagen from Huron. Same thing. Some very, very kind, generous, words and stuff that those things there, I'll never forget. And I never forget Coach Budenhagen, because he always says every night that he sees me, he loves my haircut. But no, I don't forget those kind of things, and that's friends.
Yeah.
There.
And it's kind of fun in a sense when you get those interaction with coaches outside of the game that are, and I think 99% of the time, very cordial. It could be 100% of the time, but it's even more meaningful, like you said, when it's a situation that's beyond basketball, beyond everyday life. And
when you're out on the floor, they have a professional job to do, just like what we do. If they don't like what we call, I look at it and I say, that's not my problem.
Yep.
You got bigger and better things to have to worry about sometimes, and they do. But if you have to take care of business in a game, you have to take care of business. It isn't going to ruin if I see him the next day on the street or the next game or whatever.
Correct.
So
everything's a new slate in that regard. Speaking of your calls, them not liking it, things like that, are there rules that during your time that you've seen that were added that were a good addition to the game and helped the game along?
Oh yeah, definitely. The shot clock's a huge thing. I think is benefited the game tremendously. I mean, I can go back years ago, situations that, I mean, you can't stall out the last 4 minutes of a game and just sit there and hold it and stand there, which I've had to do before. You know, that I think that's a great one. Whether or not this is true or not, but it seems like the high school level at some certain time, whether it's college men or college women, they somewhat kind of follow stuff. Not always, but and I also foresee a few other things that I would like to see maybe change down the road, like the college women with the foul count resetting, which it's going to this year, which I think is going to be a great rule change. The other one is you know, the 5-second count, you know, unless you're, you know,
holding the ball there.
Yeah, I wish they would go to that, like with what they do at that level. But it's the one that I would really like to see as well changed, but I don't think it will, because it's not easy to referee it. Is the arc play. Because not everybody's gotten that opportunity to do that at the collegiate level. Correct. Like some people have. Once you're used to doing it, it's not that hard to do. But it would be a great rule, because I don't like it when somebody stands underneath the basket and thinks that they're taking a charge, you know, type thing. But so those are just a couple of things.
Do you think that comes from a competitive nature in yourself, that you're like, I'd rather see baskets scored in and ones versus this last second slide in and getting a...
it's just partially is these kids nowadays are getting to be so athletic and stuff, and to take something away from a kid that's going up and being really athletic, some kid standing underneath the basket is, to me, you're taking away from that kid. You know, I think that's the main thing. The game has changed so much over the last, I would say last 10 to 12 years. But just the physicality, the size of the kids, the athleticism of the kids. I mean, you were out there this year. The state basketball tournament for the AA boys. It was sick what was going on out there as far as athleticism went. I mean, I don't know who had the game. I was on the table, but there was 10 dunks in one game. One game, and that was just one. So
it was impressive.
And
I think some of those are kind of also maybe modifications that you'd like to see. Is there any like rules that maybe you're like, I would like to see those just kind of eliminated? You kind of talked about the 5-second one, maybe an elimination on the dribbling portion. Because that even puts officials in a tough bind where I got to watch something all the way across the court when I should be watching action right here next to me. Is there any other rules that you see like, man, I really don't know if I like that one? And maybe it's from whether it's a gamesman position or just it's tough to call as an official.
Well, here's one too. I wish now that they're going to being, these kids are being so much athletic, goaltending. Okay. Where I wish they would do it like what they do at the collegiate level. That ball hits the backboard, it's an automatic goaltend. I wish that they would go to that. It's too big of a gray area to leave that up to the officials to say, well, it's still on its way up. Or, you know, it's on its way down or whatever. That ball hits the backboard, boom, it should be an automatic goaltend if it's blocked after that.
Correct. And I think
that's just me.
Yeah, I think that's one of the toughest ones, especially when you're doing the AA boys, the most athletic ones in the state. You get that ball, it hits the backboard at the wrong spot, and it gets blocked. Now I got to make a decision in my head. Is this going up, or is this at its peak?
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. The kids, and it doesn't matter what level. I mean, you said the AA level, but, you know, trust me. They've got kids at the other levels of the A and Class B that can go up and do multiple things like that as well. And I just think across the board it would help take that gray area out from us.
Correct. I agree completely with that one. The final question is this: what kind of advice would you give to a younger official, a newer official? Sometimes the newer officials are a little bit older as well. So what's some sort of advice that you've kind of taken upon yourself that you've learned through, whether it's a difficult time or a challenge that you've had? Mm-hmm. So what's something like that you would give to a newer official?
Couple things. One is, I would say, is always this. First of all, we don't do this for the money by any means. Can it be a decent part-time job? Yes. But never, I said this to my wife years ago when I wanted to go to a different level. She said, you go as far as you want to go, just don't forget you got a family.
Yep.
And I think that's a key thing, is just remember your families and make time for them as well, because without them in this refereeing ordeal, if you don't have their support, it's not any fun. It's not any fun to go to games, and if your wife's not happy, saying, "Oh, I don't want you to be going out 2, 3, 4 nights a week or whatever." Mm-hmm. It's not any fun.
Yep.
Same with your kids. Remember, if they've got events, go to them. You can always referee. Yep. Don't miss their stuff.
Yep.
Okay?
Absolutely.
As much as you can. And then one other thing is you have to have the want to learn and a passion to do it. Because if you want to really succeed, I mean, there is nothing wrong with people refereeing sub-varsity games. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
I'm just saying, if you want to get into it and you want to be able to advance, you have to have a passion for what you're doing.
Yep.
And you set yourself some goals, and nowadays you can go do lots of things. There's lots of opportunities out there that we didn't have. And so those are I guess my key things, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think I can really say much more to add to those things. They're awesome. And thanks for stopping by, Jeff. I appreciate it. And yeah.
No, thanks, Andrew. You got a good thing going here, I think. Hopefully we can get a little interaction between us referees and some coaches and stuff. So thanks a lot again.
Absolutely. Thank you again. And thank you everyone for watching. This is, again, the Irenic Ref podcast, and we'll see you next time.